Hello, everyone, and welcome to Counselor Feature Friday. I'm your host, Brian Urban. In these features, we try to give you some simple tips, tidbits, and tricks to make your days easier and your patients happier. In this Feature Friday, we're going to talk about the patient report, which takes us right back to the origin story of Counselor. This is the first thing we ever created. We've been hearing from people that, while they're aware it's out there and it's something they could use, have some questions about how to create it, how to customize it, and how it can be used most effectively. So we're going to go through this very briefly and give you a sense of a few of those different areas and how this can benefit not only your patients but your overall practice. So we're going to start here within a patient visit screen that's already been completed. So we've already performed testing, we've already got some work done in here, and we're going to focus on the patient report tab. This is where Counselor is going to take the classification of the hearing loss. It's going to automatically, have pulled that over from the results within the professional report within the audiogram screen. It'll have any recommendations loaded that were created during the case history portion of the visit with the patient. Of course, you can pop in here, you can add new recommendations. In this case, a few new ones were added. They can be customized. That all can be done very, very quickly. The goal is that you can have the patient report completed in honestly 10 to 20 seconds, right? This is right after we finish testing. We want to have this available right away. So when it's time to start counseling, there's some options for you. You can, of course, open up the patient counseling summary. This will show your logo and your information. But then you have some choices. You can print this out right away and draw on it and use it when you're talking with the patient. You, of course, could bring this up on a screen and show this to the patient as you're talking through these different areas. Some people prefer not to use it right away, but then they'll send it to the patient right after, or they email it to them while the patient was sitting there. And personally, that's what I did a lot. I'd bring this up on a screen, review with the patient, and ask them, would you like me to print this for you or email it to you, right? Either way, you can get it in their hands right away. As far as the breakdown of the report itself, what we're focusing on here is giving a highly specific counseling summary that addresses the specific questions, concerns, and needs from that patient encounter. All right, it's not a generic thing. While it does have the familiar sounds audiogram with the patient's actual thresholds, it's not a fittable audiogram, obviously. This is just a counseling summary only. Now, by the way, you can change the look and feel of this. So if you decide you don't want the color scheme or the letters, those types of things, you can manage that very, very easily. Counselor will automatically create a customized, or it will create a layman's term description of the hearing loss custom to that patient's hearing loss, right? So it's specific for that patient. And the idea there is that, you can review this with them. They can take this home and read it on their own. They can share it with their spouse, their caregiver, their children. Your counseling message is not limited to your own four walls. It's getting out, and following the patient where they go, and other people who aren't able to join can still understand what you need them to know. Same thing goes for the recommendations, right? We want these to be specific, be related to the patient. So you could have something as highly specific as call Dr. Miller at 555-5555 due to a difference between your ears, right? If there's something you saw that was concerning, you want them to know who to call, how to call them, and what to say when the office manager picks up the phone. Right? We can make this highly specific, and once again, we're not relying on the patient's remembering. Many people, you guys have already heard me talk about this, but in a typical counseling session, only 25% of the information is remembered correctly. 25% is remembered wrong, and 50% is just gone, right? And this is the moment that they walk out the door. We're not even talking a week down the road. So 25% right, 25% wrong, 50% gone. So if we want to ensure that patients are going to go home with the message that we intend them to go home with, we need to provide them with some tools, right? This obviously, the focus here is to improve what patients remember and increase the likelihood they're going to follow through with your recommendations. So not only going to see the ENT when we have a medical referral, but also we want to cut down our test not treated rates, right? It costs a lot to get patients in the office, and when you have an opportunity to change their life with amplification and they don't follow up, and it's simply because they didn't remember your counseling perfectly, we need to do more, right? And the patient counseling summary is designed to specifically do that. Now, beyond this, you can provide this to, say, referring physicians or the patient's primary physician, let's say if the patient was self-referred, to supplement the professional report. And the idea here is that, as professionals, we know hearing healthcare. We understand what this hearing loss means to the patient on a day-to-day basis. We cannot expect primary care to understand the same thing and be able to translate an audiogram or verbiage into something that's going to relate to the patient. So, hey, let's send along the patient counseling summary. This gives them an opportunity to establish some common language with the patient, hopefully learn more themselves, right? We're not requiring that they, are experts in this. They should be able to walk right into it. It also has a nice effect of, once again, extending your counseling beyond your four walls. So you're sending them home with a similar message that you talked about in your office, and they review it with their family. They talk to their physician, and they're getting the same message again because you're sort of, guiding that process. Then let's look down the road. Let's say they're, this patient summary makes it into their medical record, because you sent it to their primary. Let's say they're admitted to the hospital for some reason, and the nurse that's working with them has some concerns and isn't quite sure what the status of their hearing, or if they're just kind of mentally not responsive. They can look in the medical record and actually have a layman's term description of what the patient's experiencing, or what they're likely to struggle with. So once again, your counseling extends beyond your four walls, not even just related to amplification and general recommendations, but the patient's overall well-being and health care. So once again, obviously you can tell I get pretty fired up about this. As I mentioned, this is the first thing we ever created for Counselor. We want to make sure that it's used, all over the place. We feel it can have a great advantage for individual patient interactions with you, as well as your ability to establish yourself even further within physicians in your neighborhood. So please let us know if you have any questions about the patient report, ways it can be customized, ways it can be implemented. We're always happy to field your questions. Give us a call, email us, live chat us. Thanks so much for watching another Feature Friday, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.